We're back with David Henry Sterry. His book is called Chicken, Self-Portrait of a Young Man for Rent. It was about his 9 months when he was 17 years old as a male prostitute. You lived the fantasy of a lot of men, is that you had a menage a trois, 2 women, but you got paid for it. What was that like?
Yes. Well, when I first entered the room, there was 2 beautiful women, and I thought to myself, va, 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 voom. But in fact, they wanted me to get dressed in a black see-through French maid's outfit with nothing else on, and they wanted me to clean their house, polish their immaculately clean silverware, and Windex their mirrors as they made love to each other. And it was kind of like radio porn. You know, you could hear all this incredible with smell-o-rama, because the scent of it was just overpowering too. But I was like humping the air, you know. I mean, I still wanted to be part of that, but they didn't want me to be part of it. It was really a nasty experience.
Was there ever a time when you were on the job where you said to yourself, you know what, I need to do something else for a living. This is not a good career choice.
There were many times when I seriously questioned my career choice. Yes, as a male prostitute. One time I worked with a woman who, she was very troubled, and she decided what she wanted to do was sit on my face. She wanted to use me as a chair, basically. And at one point, and she had this kind of like feminine, fresh chemical smell. She'd obviously used some sort of vaginal deodorant. I don't even know what you'd call it, but I mean, I was suffocating. I couldn't breathe. And she was just sort of sitting there with all of her weight on me. And I really had this thought, asphyxiation by vagina. That's what it's going to say on my death certificate.
Report, exactly.
Yes, the autopsy. You know, like, oh, the poor guy. Well, hope he was happy when he went.
Did you feel exploited? So many people who were sex workers said, I felt exploited.
It's a very difficult question for me to answer. At the time, I was so desperate for love and for money that, I mean, no one put a gun to my head. I chose to do this work.
But you were 17 years old.
But yes, there is a part of me that feels like this guy who rescued me out of the dumpster, he made money off me. I worked for an agency called the Hollywood Employment Agency. They made money off me. Yes, I think in one way I was exploited. I chose to do that work and be there. But I think my situation is different in some ways than most women, for example, who get into it, or most men who get into it with guys, because I did enjoy a lot of the work, and some of it was really horrible, but I guess in the end, I enjoyed that part of my life. I learned a lot of things, but yes, ultimately I did feel exploited, yeah.
And at the end, right before you got out of the business, you did have sex with men for money.
Well, it's interesting because for me it wasn't sexual at all. I got paid to physically and verbally abuse men. And I made it very clear that I wasn't going to actually have sex with them. There was no penetration. They didn't touch me or anything. But for them, it was sexual, obviously. And my final job was really how I got out of the whole business. I was hired to physically and verbally abuse this guy. He had a big mustache, and he was sort of like intimating that we were going to have sex, and I just kept getting madder. I was full of rage at that time in my life. I mean, rage was this far below the surface of my skin. So to do this work, I was good at it because the rage, I could access it very easily. So he put my head on his chest, and I felt this tugging. I had long hair. I felt this tugging on my head, and I looked up, and he had my hair in his mouth. And it just like, oh, you know when that expression that you see red?
Yeah. Wow.
I saw red. I tore up his whole apartment. I destroyed everything in there. I beat him to a pulp. It's one of the things I feel very ashamed of.
But that was an exciting thing for him.
I think it was, but I mean, it went to the point where it was beyond excitement, and it was into, I mean, I really hurt the guy, and I fled there, and that was it. I was done with that part of my life.
Okay, let's grab an email from Donna.
Frank from Manhattan writes, who pays more, men or women?
I was told by the guy who hired me that I could have worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if I'd been willing to work with men. Now that sounds kind of exhausting to me, but there is much more demand for working with men for a man than there is for working with women. I only worked 3 days a week. Usually I had 3 jobs in the course of a week. But if I'd wanted to work with men, I mean, I could have worked all the time. So I don't think you make more money, but I think there's more opportunity.
What did you learn about women and sex from your brief time as a hooker?
Women, what I learned about it was that women, first and foremost, they want some kind of connection. If you can make a woman's desire and her satisfaction your chief goal, you will get laid all the time.
Important lesson for men that you don't get.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And what are you doing now? And you're married.
Yes, I am.
And your wife, you told her about this. In fact, she was the first person you did tell.
Yeah, she is actually was my agent at the time, and I'd written a novel that was
Your literary agent, we should say, not your prostitution
no,
agent.
she wasn't my pimp. No. She was. Thank you for clarifying
welcome.
that, because I don't want her mom to see this.
No, I understand.
So she was my literary agent, and I'd written a novel that was very veiled, and so we went on a date. The date went very well. We ended up back in her bedroom, and she's a nice Jewish girl. She says, so have you had a lot of partners? I'm like, well, yeah. She said, have you ever been with a prostitute? And I said, well, actually,
Wow.
I was a prostitute. She said, instead of running into the night, she said, wow, that's interesting. And she said, this is the book that you should write. Tell the real story of what it was.
And she was okay with it.
She's amazing. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how she does it. I really don't. I mean, if I was married to someone who went on TV all the time and said I was a prostitute, it would be hard for me to handle. It would.
Yeah. Congratulations on the book. It's
Thank
a
you
really
very much.
very well written book.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.